Okay, it's time to do it. Henry Cavill's Superman is historic, but how does David Corenswet stack up to what came before? Henry Cavill's Superman was powerful, grounded, and he was divisive at times. David Corenswet is taking the cape in a totally new direction, so let's see how they really compare. We're going to be looking at Henry Cavill's portrayal across Man of Steel and the Snyderverse, and David Corenswet's Superman now that he has debuted to the world, and how both of these portrayals define the character for their generation. I'm Phil, this is DC Chronicle, the place for honest DC opinions. Hit like and let's get into this Superman showdown. Now that James Gunn's Superman is out, we can truly compare the two. I know people might think it's not an accurate comparison after only one movie, but if you think about it, Henry Cavill was in one movie, then half a movie, then the last third of a movie, and then an end credit scene. And that's only counting the appearances where he actually has a head. So what I'm saying is we never saw tons of Henry Cavill as Superman. That is one of many missed opportunities that I'll discuss in this video. But for this reason, I do think it will be a fair comparison. Henry Cavill's Superman felt grandiose and godlike. When Henry Cavill walked on screen, it was like watching a god amongst men. This was clearly how Zack Snyder designed the character and how he saw the character. There are many analogues between this Superman and good old JC, Jesus Christ, not just in the resurrection story of the Justice League, but in the shots of Superman that we saw across the movies and the many poses that he does. Whereas it's clear that David Corenswet's Superman was designed to feel very human. He's relatable with a grounded energy that makes this version feel optimistic and accessible. We see countless examples of this in his movie, most notably in his big speech to Lex Luthor, which I think really summed up this Superman and summed up why he resonated with so many people. Henry Cavill was epic and he was awe-inspiring. David Corenswet is someone you can believe in and connect with. A great example is during the kaiju fight, the Superman saves the dog with the freeze breath, he flies and saves the squirrel, he saves the woman from being crushed by the foot, and he saves the girl from the canisters. These are moments of humanity that for me really stand out. Cavill, on the other hand, his Superman was more focused on global threats. Apart from Lois Lane, we rarely saw him saving individual people. The girl in the burning building from BVS is the main one that comes to mind. But if you were just generally a member of the public in this world, then Superman hasn't really got anything for you. His challenges were massive world-ending crises, from the World Engine to Doomsday to Steppenwolf and Darkseid. But does being relatable make David Corenswet's Superman less epic? I don't really think so. You've just got to look at the rift scene on the bridge where he saves the girl in the car, and then the fights with Ultraman and Lex's Raptors. They show this Superman can still have epic fight scenes, just like Henry Cavill did with Zod and Doomsday. For Henry Cavill, being Superman was about choice. He questioned if the world even wanted him. He hesitated, conflicted about whether to act. Whereas for David Corenswet, there really is no choice. He sees danger and he acts, and then he deals with the consequences. That kind of proactive heroism makes his Superman feel hopeful and driven. And you do have to wonder how Henry Cavill's Superman would have acted if the Bravia and Jaranpur conflict had happened in his world. Now, we did see him interact in Africa in BVS. Again, this is motivated by that Lois Lane was there. And without going into the whole thing, the issues and the geopolitical concerns in Africa are very different to the Middle East. So I'm really not sure. Would Henry Cavill have intervened at all in Bravia and Jaranpur? Would he have saved civilians but not tried to influence the president of Bravia? Would he have still confronted the president? Again, I'm really not sure, but let me know what you think he would have done in that situation. David Corenswet's Superman feels present in every scene. He's not just saving the world, he's saving those individuals and those small acts of heroism. It's very reminiscent of Smallville, and if you're like me and of a certain age, you'll remember when that show was airing and how you really felt watching it, and it really harkened back to those times when watching that Clark Kent. Henry Cavill was about the big picture, he saved the world, but he lacked those everyday heroism moments, which isn't a criticism of Henry Cavill, his performance. Those are the stories he was given, that was the choice that was made, and it's a perfectly fine choice. And And that's not to say that Henry Cavill's Superman didn't care about people. Of course, he snapped Zod's neck to protect a family. And the point I'm really making here is these two versions have a completely different focus, but heroism isn't just about who they save, it's about how they carry themselves. David Corenswet's Superman feels dorky, he feels very human and approachable. I mentioned this in my review video, if you watched that. That approach made the performance for me, and it made how he was able to deliver some of his lines and not make it feel cringy by embracing the dorkiness. He's warm, he's humble, and he's a little bit awkward, but that all feels very genuine. Henry Cavill's Superman is the opposite of that. He's stoic, grand, and regal. Even as Clark Kent, he would carry himself with a certain presence and power that set him apart from people. And we saw that in the ultimate cut of BVS. Henry's Superman is the kind of man you look up to, no pun intended. David Corenswet is the kind of Superman you want to hang out with and maybe even go to a Mighty Crabjoy's concert. So we also can't ignore the studio politics around each of these movies. Henry Cavill was a victim. He was the victim of Warner Brothers chaos from cutting 30 minutes from Batman v Superman. We all know what the butterfly effect of that decision was and how it impacted the entire DCEU, from the Justice League mess, Joss Whedon, to the long fight for the Snyder Cut. That's another topic for another video. Even when he appeared, his appearances were mishandled. A headless cameo in Shazam, his return in Black Adam, and then being forced to announce he was done with the role. It was quite frankly embarrassing and unfair to Henry Cavill. There's lots of great articles you can read about the whole chaos. James Gunn himself recently commented on the situation and how badly he felt for Henry after all that went down. Meanwhile, David Corenswet has benefited from stable leadership on the DC studios and James Gunn and Peter Safran. There's a clear vision for his Superman and the DCU as a whole. This means he's set up for success way more than Henry Cavill ever was. And whilst this is great for David Corenswet, it does mean there'll always be this kind of what if next to Henry Cavill's name and ideas on what he could have been were it not for the problems he faced as an actor in the regime he was part of at the time. It's not just about the actor, it's about the direction that they were given as well. I do feel like Henry Cavill was the right Superman for his time. The darker take matched the kind of gritty post-2000s tone, following the Nolan trilogy as a natural successor. David Corenswet is the perfect Superman for right now. There's a fatigue, I feel like, around evil Superman takes like Injustice Superman or even Homelander. Audiences are craving an optimistic Superman who inspires people. Henry Cavill's Superman never got to complete his journey towards that hopeful vision. I do feel like there was a plan for him to get there. Following the Justice League trilogy, there was always that intention. David Corenswet is starting there from day one. I do feel like he was better off for it. Henry Cavill was iconic in his way. With better leadership, he could have evolved to a brighter, more inspiring Superman. David Corenswet feels like the Superman we need right now. For me, that ultimately means that recasting Superman was the right decision. Now, which Superman resonates with you more? Henry Cavill's godlike character or David Corenswet's Henry Cavill's godlike power or David Corenswet's grounded hope? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this honest comparison, hit like, subscribe, and check out my other videos.